Everybody, it's Mr. Loose, and your technique of the week is basic stitches. So, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how to sew with 4 different stitches. Before we get started, I want you to see that this is the needle, okay? And the needle that has the little hole at the end, that's called the eye, right? And the eye is where you will attach your string, yarn, jute, whatever you're going to be sewing with. So you stick it through and you tie it to the eye of the needle. When you have done that, on the other end, you are going to tie a little knot. And this is going to make sure that when you pull your string all the way through, this doesn't go through. It stays in the back so that it keeps your yarn from continuing, or string, or whatever you're using to keep moving. Now, I'm going to show you 4 different stitches. So I'm going to show you how to do the running stitch first. And the running stitch is simply where you are creating a dotted line or broken line. So I'm going to be sewing on paper today. All right, so I'm going to start right here. So I'm going to go in the back. All right, the white part's the back. I'm going to stick my needle through. I'm going to pull it all the way through. And of course, you don't have to do this on paper. You can do this on fabric, you can do this on canvas, you can do it on anything you want. All right, so I pull it all the way through to where my knot stopped. All right, so that means I'm all the way through. So now I'm then going to go a little bit further in. So I'm going to go right here, stick my needle back in. I'm going to pull it all the way through, and I've got my line. So then I'm already in the back, I'm going to come up, but instead of coming up right next to it, right, I want to give myself a little bit of space, so I'm probably going to come about this far away, about the same amount of length that I did there. And I'm going to come through, carefully poking it through. Pull my string. Okay, and then I'm going to go just a little bit further, with the same length right here. Stick my needle through. Pull it through. Uh-oh. Don't want your string to get all knotted. Okay, so boop, boop. And I'm going to do one more just to make sure you understand. So I'm on the back, and I've been skipping the same amount of space, so I'm going to skip the same one. Same amount of space. I'm going to bring it through. Uh-oh. Well, that wouldn't happen if you were doing this on actual fabric instead of paper. But you can sew on paper. That you can do that. You just have to be very, very careful. This paper is kind of thin. Okay, so I'm going to drag that through. And there we go. There is our running stitch. Okay, ta-da! So now, the next stitch that we're going to do is called a whip stitch. And the whip stitch is exactly like the running stitch, where you have a little bit of thread, and then you skip a spot and have a little bit of thread, skip, have a little bit of thread. But you're doing it at an angle. Okay, so I'm just going to keep doing it right here. All right, so start from the back, come through the back, pull your string, okay, and then instead of going straight like that, I'm going to go at an angle. So I'm going to come right here, okay? I'm going to poke it through. All right, and there's my angle. But how do I do that on the back? So on the back, you're basically going to come back right here. You're going to bring your needle here on the back, trying to keep it in line with the same one. Okay, and then same spot right there at an angle. Okay, boop, boop. And let's do one more. So I'm gonna in the back, I'm gonna come up right here. So I'm keeping this all in a line, but I'm basically just going doot, 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 doot. Let's see here. Yeah, that's good right there. Okay, and then right there. All right, and then, oh, I went a little too far up. But that is a running stitch, okay? So now I'm going to show you how to do the zigzag stitch. And the zigzag stitch literally just makes a zigzag. So starting from the back. Pull it through. And you're doing the running, or the whip stitch. Boop, boop. But you're, so you're going to start off by doing the whip stitch. And then, however, instead of coming back right here, we're going to come back right next to the hole we just made. So I'm going to try and get as close as you can. And depending on the size of your needle, I'm using a very large one. It's called a tapestry needle. Depending on the needle, the closer you can get without. And, of course, the material. With the paper is going to be a little bit more sensitive and rip easier than if you're doing this on actual fabric. Okay, so then boop, boop, and then I'm going to come right back up, right next to the one I just made. And then go right here. And if you want to make sure that it's more consistent and looks the same, then you can draw it before. And you can even draw it before on fabric, not even just on paper. You can draw lightly with a pencil or a pen or maybe a marker. And you can draw your design so that you have something to follow instead of just doing it without having any kind of guide. Okay, boop, boop, boop. And let's do one more. So I'm going to come up right next to it. Uh-oh. My thread came out of my needle. This is perfect because then you get to see how I did this. So I take my yarn or my string, just fold it to make like a little nugget, and I'm going to stick it through the eye hole, and ta-da! And I'm going to tie it. I'm using twine today. Okay, I'm going to double tie it just to be safe. Okay, excellent. And then I'm going to go down right here. And then come right back next to it. I have to say, this is the first time I have ever sewn on paper before. It's interesting. Okay, so doot, 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 doot. There you go. There's your zigzag. Now, for the last one, this is quite simple. It's called the straight stitch. And the straight stitch is where you simply come up and go in a long space. This is great if you want to cover a lot of ground, or if you're like filling in a space, like with color. All right, so you're just going to come up from the bottom, boop, and then you're going to go, let's say I want to go to here, and then you're just going to it's kind of the easy way out, and then boop, there you go. And then if you wanted, you could come in right next to it. way back. And what's going on here? There. Okay, and then if you did that back and forth, then it would fill in the whole spot. All right, so that is the straight stitch. So we have our running stitch, which goes in, under a little bit, out, under a little bit, out. And then we have our whip stitch, which is the same thing as the running, but at an angle. Then we have our zigzag, doot, 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 and then our straight stitch, which just makes a long, long stretch of string. I hope that helps.